Hi student, in this video you are going to learn about the third system in the human physiology, which is the respiratory system. And this is the introduction one, or part one. Let's start with the anatomy of the respiratory system. The first, on the top you can see larynx. This is also called as the voice box. So your voice, all what you say, are processed or happens or created here in the voice box. And the trachea is the next one that is connected directly from the larynx. It's also called as the windpipe because it sends the air go down to the lungs from the outside during inspiration, and during the expiration or exhalation, the trachea also act as the pipe that send the winds out from the lungs to the environment. And of course, these trachea are connected to the lungs through what we call the bronchus. Right? You can see the bronchus are actually the branches of the trachea. One goes to the left and the other one goes to the right lungs. And then the bronchus are further branching itself to become bronchioles. Okay, you can see the bronchioles on your right side below the bronchus. So basically, bronchioles are the small branches of bronchus. Why? Again, this to increase the surface area as a way of the lungs to increase the surface area and the distribution of the gas to the lung cells. And on your right side, you can also see the rib or rib cage beneath the bronchioles. This rib cage really help the process of inspiration and expiration. The explanation of why the rib cage is very important, you can listen to the explanation further in this video. The next one is called diaphragm. You can see in the middle at the center of this diagram, you can see diaphragm, all right, below the rib or the rib cage. And then next to the right side, you can see below the bronchus, you can see the intercostal muscle. So intercostal muscle, which is part of the rib cage, again, the function is to help the process of inspiration or exhalation, and we will see in the next slide. And then the last one is alveolus. The alveolus are basically the small sacs that connects directly to bronchioles, and this alveolus, or the plural form of it is called alveoli, connect or in contact with the blood vessels. All right, we will see the details of this structure in the next one. So this is the bronchioles and alveolus, all right, or the plural is the alveoli. So you can see the trachea here on the top, and we have learned in the previous slide that trachea consists of two branches, each called the bronchus. One go to the left, the other one go to the right, and then the bronchus will further branching itself to become bronchioles. So you can see the zoom in picture, right? In the circle, you can see the bronchiole. And the bronchiole connect to the alveoli. So alveoli looks like grapes, like small little sacs connect directly to bronchioles. And these alveoli are surrounded by blood vessels. So you can see like fiber-like structure on the surface of the alveoli. Those are the blood vessels or capillaries. So far you have learned the anatomy of the respiratory system, both as a big picture that consists of the lungs, the rib cage, the trachea, as well as the microscopic level where you can see the bronchioles and the alveolus. All right, now before we learn the detailed process of how the gas exchange happen in our body, let me tell you the big picture of the process first. So you can see here, the first step is ventilation. It is the process where you intake the fresh air from your surrounding and exhale, all right, the stale air out from your lungs to the surrounding. And then from ventilation, the next thing that will happen is gas exchange. And this takes place in alveolus, all right? We'll talk about it further later. And then the last one, the gas that is absorbed, particularly in the first process is to take oxygen to the blood, will go to all cells in our body, and the oxygen will be used in the cell respiration and becomes carbon dioxide as the waste product. So that's the reason why I use two ribbons at beneath the pictures. The first one is red, is a representative of like the journey of how oxygen reach the cells in our body. So through ventilation, where our respiratory system brings in the fresh air, and then in the lungs, gas exchange will happen. Blood will in the capillaries takes or absorb the oxygen and then circulate it throughout the body for cell respiration. And then after that, the cells, the blue ribbon, it is a representative to tell you that after the cell respiration happen, the cell will, excrete the waste product in form of the carbon dioxide, and the carbon dioxide will flow with the blood, go to the lungs, and then in the lungs, the blood in the capillaries will exchange the carbon dioxide with the oxygen again, and then we exhale. This is the ventilation in blue. We exhale the gas that contains the carbon dioxide. So this process has to happen simultaneously, continuously, to ensure that all of our cells can receive oxygen all the time, and also can, uh, you know, the waste product of the carbon dioxide, which is in form of carbon dioxide, can be taken out from our body, because the accumulation of carbon dioxide will become toxic for our body. Now, here we are going to take a closer look on the ventilation, the first step of the process that happens in our respiratory system. All right, ventilation by definition is the process of bringing fresh air into alveoli and removing stale air. Or basically, in daily life, we call it like breathing in and breathing out. All right. Now, ventilation seems so simple for you to do. Well, you don't even have to think to do the process. However, the details of the process are not that simple, and it requires some knowledge of or understanding of physics. But I'm sure you have learned a little bit about this when you studied the circulatory system, where we discuss how pressure and volume connect with each other. The same principle will be used in or to explain the detailed process that happen in ventilation. So the first detailed step is about how our lungs can expand when we inhale and shrink when we exhale. So it's kind of like contraction, right? But the problem is our muscles are not made our lungs are not made of muscles. So how our lungs can do that? How can it contract and relax, expand and shrink? So without the muscle. So the answer is because we have intercostal muscle in between the bones in our rib cage. So you can see from this slide that the changes in the shape of the rib cage when it becomes bigger or smaller is actually helped by the contraction of the intercostal muscle, or the muscle between the bones of the rib cage. So our lungs have no muscle, therefore they cannot contract by itself. They require other muscle to help them to contract, which is the muscle between the rib cage bones. So they are called intercostal muscle. And this muscle, of course, like any other muscle in our body, they can contract and relax. And the contraction and relaxation of the muscle helps to change the volume of the rib cage of the thorax. As the result, the pressure inside the rib cage also will be changed and affect the shape of the lungs. We will see further, right? But now you have to understand our lungs cannot contract or relax, all right, by itself. So that's why it requires the help from muscle that can contract and relax. And the muscle who has the job to do so is the intercostal muscle. So we will see more details about the intercostal muscle. There are two types of intercostal muscle. The first one is the internal intercostal muscle. Okay, you can see from the picture on your left. Okay, the internal intercostal muscle located inside, as per its name, internal means it is on the second layer, while the first layer is called the external intercostal muscle. All right. Now, can you see the internal intercostal muscle? I put a red arrow so that you can see, while the external intercostal muscle, I use the green arrow for you to see. Now, if you see further, the blue arrows, can you see on the diagram on the left? The blue arrow shows that these two muscle types have two different direction, all right, for contraction. So for the external intercostal muscle, the strand goes up, all right, goes up, while for the internal intercostal muscle, the strand goes down. So when it contracts, it will bring the rib cage down, all right, for internal intercostal muscle, while for the external intercostal muscle, when it contracts, it will bring the bones going up. Can you imagine that? Going up and going down. And I think you can see from the other diagrams on the left, the two diagrams, how the external and internal intercostal muscle are located, all right? So again, in the next slide, I will show you how these two muscles contract and relax, um, and how the effect of their contraction uh, change the volume or the shape of the rib cage. So, in another word, I can say that these two types of muscle work antagonistically or against each other in or the opposite direction. One going up, the other going down. External going up, internal going down when they contract. So in this slide, you can see more clearly, okay, especially by looking at to the diagram on your left, all right, there's the animation. So when the rib cage going up, all right, it means that the external intercostal muscle contract brings the rib cage up and out. While during expiration, when we exhale, the internal intercostal muscle will contract and brings the rib cage down and in. All right? So again, they work antagonistically, which means that they work in the opposite direction. The other structure in the respiratory system that help to change the shape or the size of the volume, thus decrease or change the pressure, is the diaphragm. All right, so you can see from this slide there are lots of animation that you can see how diaphragm going up and down to change the volume of the thorax or the volume of our rib cage. All right. So let me read it. Another muscle that helps respiration is diaphragm. Diaphragm is a dome-shaped muscular partition, which means that they separate, okay, act as the separator between the thorax and the abdomen, all right, in mammals. So that's why your intestine cannot going or jump out into your lungs because there is basically a separator, which is the diaphragm. But again, the function of diaphragm is not just to create a separation between the organs on our in our chest and the organs in our abdomen or belly, but it also has a very important function when we do inhaling or exhaling. All right, like you can see from here. So in number 3, you can see a person who is doing breathing in or out by maximizing the function of his or her abdomen. All right. So usually these types of uh, breathing method used by like for example a singer, because it will create stronger volume. All right, well even but for us I think on average we usually tend to use our chest respiration method more compared to the abdomen. But well, maybe you are interested to practice this abdomen type of breathing by using more your diaphragm or maximally, because it will create stronger voice. All right, maybe you should try one day. In this slide you can see an animation on the left side, so you can take time to watch it. All right, in the bottle you can see 2 little red balloons. Those are the representatives of our lungs. And how about the yellow one, the yellow rubber? Yes, that's the representative of our diaphragm. Unfortunately, it's pretty hard to create a model of how our rib cage change and help the in the process of inhaling or exhaling. So usually people just create a model made of like a bottle, plastic bottle that is cut half, and then use another balloon to create the diaphragm, right? And inside the bottle, they put 2 little balloons as the representative of the lungs. So you can see when the diaphragm contract or relax, it changed the total volume of the bottle inside the bottle. And when the remember when the volume increase, the pressure will decrease. All right, we will take a look at it one by one. So let's start with the picture A on your right. You can see in your picture A, this is the process of inhalation. Right, during inhalation, your diaphragm contracts, become shorter and flat or flatter. All right, remember when muscle contract means it gets shorter. All right, so when the diaphragm become flat because it is shorter, all right, the volume, the total volume in the rib cage, okay, will increase. When volume increase, the pressure decrease. The pressure is decreased lower than the outside environment. Now you may have learned in your science class before, okay, in grade 9, 10, or maybe lower grades, that air always move from higher pressure to lower pressure. So when the uh, volume of the thorax or rib cage getting bigger, the pressure inside it getting lower. And when the pressure getting lower than the atmosphere or the surrounding, the air from the surrounding will enter the lungs. And then how about the picture B? This is during exhalation or breathing out. Here, the diaphragm relaxes. Relax means the muscle gets longer. As the muscle gets longer in the diaphragm will look like a dome shape. Then will take up some space from the rib cage. Thus, the total volume of the rib cage will decrease. So when the volume decreases, the pressure will increase. The pressure increase higher than the environment. As a result, the air from the lungs will go out because the pressure inside our lung is higher than the environment. So if you add this process with the rib cage movement, if you still remember, during the inhalation, the external intercostal muscle will contract and bring the rib cage up and out. So the total volume plus the diaphragm that contract become the flat, the total volume of the thorax will be very, very big. While during the exhalation, if you still remember, the rib cage, the intercostal muscle in the rib cage, especially the internal one, will contract and bring the rib cage in and down. Plus, with the diaphragm that relaxes, the total volume of the thorax will be very small. Thus, the pressure inside it will be very high, higher than the surrounding, and push the gas inside the lungs to go out. So I hope now you can answer the question already, like why our lungs can contract and relax even though they do not have muscle like regular organs that can contract and relax. The answer is because there are two muscles that help them. First is the intercostal muscle in between the rib cage, and the second one is the muscle in the diaphragm that can contract and relax. All right, and remember when they contract and relax, the total volume of the thorax or the chest change, and it will affect the volume. Sorry, it will affect the pressure inside the chest as well. Okay, and please also remember that gas moves from high pressure to low pressure. So here as the summary, you can see the exhalation or breathing out process on your left, the green one. It happens when the volume goes down and the pressure goes up. Okay, since the pressure inside the chest cavity increases and higher than the atmospheric pressure or the pressure surrounding us, the gas in the lungs will be pushed out. On the other hand, for the process of inhalation, you can see here that the total volume, because of the contraction of the diaphragm, all right, the total volume inside the bottle getting higher. As the result, the pressure drops. And since the pressure inside the chest cavity decreases and lower than the atmospheric pressure or the surrounding pressure, the gas from the outside will get into the lungs. All right. So I hope now you know the detailed steps that happen during ventilation. Don't forget to read your study guide. There is a table in your study guide book that give a detailed description of the step by step that happen in the ventilation. To help you to review what you have learned from this video. And in the next video, you will watch a video of animation, a full animation of ventilation, the one that I cannot do so far. Hopefully one day I'll learn how to make animation. But so far, you would have to be happy with someone else's video that show you a full animation of the ventilation. All right. So I hope this video helps you to learn about the ventilation. All right.